This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. As long-time Raith Rovers supporters, we're very familiar with ropey performances. But if you need a service that's more Sam Stanton than Willie Akio, look no further than DIS. Operating across Scotland, they specialise in working at height, offering maintenance, inspection, repairs and more. So if you've got any problems at a height that even John Fredrickson can't reach, visit dynamicindustrialservices.co.uk to find out more. The Rovers set out this week to put things right after a narrow loss at Airdrie, but then along came the Spiders. Despite the perfect start and the Rovers' makeshift defence limiting Queen's Park to just a handful of chances, Callum Davidson's new side were clinical when it mattered, while the Rovers stuttered and stumbled a little bit at the other end and were trailing 2-1 at the final whistle. This is the Oh No 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 podcast, and the name is finally starting to make a bit more sense. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me today to talk about this one, I have Carol Allison Smith. First of all, how are you, Carol?
I'm all right. I'm going to be positive.
Excellent.
That's my theme for today.
Good. I'm glad someone is bringing that level of vibes to the pod today. We've got Robbie Weir too. How are you, Robbie?
Yeah, I'm fine, Duncan. How are you?
Yeah, very well, mate, very well. Just about over my crabbit mood from yesterday. And we've got Leslie Maybon as well. How are you, Les?
Absolutely freezing. It's colder here up in Oban than it was when I did that episode from inside my car.
That is quite a frightening thought, to be fair, because you were just parked on the side of the A9 or something like that, were you not?
Exactly. I was sitting there in a roadside lay-by with my camouflage fleece like some kind of US conspiracy theorist, but it's actually colder somehow in my house now, so hoping that the next hour or so of discussion can warm me up a bit.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And we might do a little bit more railing against Queen's Park and a little bit less railing against the government's overreach. So let's jump right into this one. And I'll tell you what, let's start where we always start, which the lineup that Ian Murray chose, because there was definitely some decisions to be made. And Les, let's stick with you. Give me just your thoughts on sort of the defence as it ended up being, and Kyle Turner too, because you didn't get a shot on the preview pod, so you can give us your general thoughts on Kyle Turner.
Right, so the lineup came in and my first thought was, this is a blast from the past. I was getting flashbacks to Conor McBride. You know, it's the first time for quite a while we've seen such a makeshift bench and such a small pool of players to choose from for a whole range of reasons. And the first thing that jumps out is defenders, or lack thereof. So Andy McNeil starting in goals, I thought, yeah, that's absolutely fine. Didn't win at Airdrie, but he didn't do anything drastically wrong. Goal we conceded wasn't his fault at Airdrie, so fine with him starting. Dick at left back, Dylan Corr and Scott Brown at the defensive pairing, and Josh Mullen at right back, which I thought was quite a bold choice. And again, I was a bit disappointed to see that Ross Matthews didn't make it, and so we had a slightly depleted bench. I think, like we were saying in the week, Kyle Turner didn't come here to sit on the bench, and absolutely he was right in from the start. I was absolutely delighted that we got him in. I think, 24 hours after being outbid for Dan O'Reilly, like me and Graham Meldrum going for a 2008 Rovers stock on eBay, we lost out for that one. But, we were repaid 24 hours later when the board announced that we'd got Kyle Turner in. And, a real bit of quality, real quality signing. And I was very happy to see him in.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's. I was with no evidence, I was pretty confident Kyle Turner would come into that starting lineup, and very much it was the way I expected it to be from sort of in front of the defence going forward. With Sean Byrne kind of holding by himself again, but with Kyle Turner kind of charged with giving him a bit of a hand. Team lineup for me, my initial thought was that, when we did the preview pod, there was a few of them we'd marked as, hopefully we'll have this one, and I don't think we got any of our hopefullys. I think we really missed them all, and once you don't have Ewan Murray, you don't have Kevin Dabrowski, and obviously we knew in advance, but you don't have Ross Millen, you're gonna have square pegs in round holes. I don't have any real issue with it being Josh Mullen. I think pre-game I'd picked Scott McGill, but I mean, fine. You get different things from different players, obviously, and very early on, it looked like it might all be absolutely fine. So, Robbie, you can come in, please, and anything you want to say on the starting lineup, and you can have the first 3 minutes as well, and give us Dylan Easton's goal. Jack Hamilton's goal, assisted by Dylan Easton.
Yeah, with the lineup, it was interesting. Again, I spoke before about how with Ross Matthews we'd almost created a rod for our own back, and that kind of applies as well for Dylan Corr because he's a bit of limited game time while being a fully fit centre back that we've had available. So he came in. To be honest, Dylan Corr was absolutely fine across the board yesterday, and we can talk a bit more about that later on. He looked robust. Scott Brown's played at centre back enough. Liam Dick's a natural left back, and I don't think even Josh Mullen looked out of place at right back throughout the game. There was nothing that made me think. There was sort of I think it was like Moughlan and Dom Thomas seemed to be linking up well against him, but at the same time, it was probably Dom Thomas's quietest game, albeit he was being used more in a sort of central role. His quietest game against us so far this season. But we start the game and we started it very, very well. You could see straight away everyone really knew their roles when we were starting off. Byrne was in that holding role, just try and win the ball back, play it off, get it off to Kyle Turner, who carried it forward really, really well. And then you've got your Dylan Easton, Aidan Connolly, Lewis Vaughan floating about, and then Jack Hamilton up top. And I said on the preview pod that Queen's looked a bit susceptible based on what I'd heard to balls into the box. Dylan Easton has what looked like to me to be a shot, but then it turns out it is actually more, I thought it was initially a cross rather than a shot, but it was more of a shot than a cross. And Jack Hamilton just gets his toe on it, and it was a really good finish. Very well taken. He's timed his run perfectly, and it gave us the perfect start. And you're thinking, right, this is exactly what you want. You just want to be able to build from this. We've got a bit of breathing room now, and we can kick on and do a bit of damage today. But then we move forward.
Yeah, it is a very, very good goal. One of these that from the other end, from the south stand, I was wondering about the offside of it all, because you think he's very close to goal by the time he touches it in. But when you see it back, it's all perfectly timed. I agree with you. I think Dylan Easton is shooting, but I think he's shooting with the knowledge that he's putting the ball in a dangerous area regardless, and it's a very good finish. And it's at that early point, 3 minutes in, you think, well, that's another goal for Jack Hamilton. That's really good. That'll G him up a bit, and a big boost for Dylan Easton as well, who's maybe not hit his own heights recently. You think this is all going fine. It's lovely, all set for a nice afternoon. But Carol, you come in then, please, and again, you give us thoughts on the goal, and then the sort of the early phase beyond that. When I thought, to be fair, the Rovers were pretty decent early doors.
I'm not going to lie. When the goal went in, I thought, "Oh, could this be the 2 margin that we're dreaming of? Could it be 3? Could Christina be right? Could we be getting like 3 or 4-0?" And I would say maybe for the first 10, 15 minutes, it felt like it, but then it just went flat. And the atmosphere went flat, and everything just sort of stopped. And picking up on what you said, Duncan, that people knew their role, it seemed to be at that sort of point, nobody knew their role. And it just, the goal was great. first 3 minutes were fantastic. After that, not so much.
I thought the first half, without being overly dominant or overly, running over the top of Queen's Park by any means at all, I thought there was still quite a lot of control in the first half. I was reminded of the last game at East End Park, where obviously this game didn't have much of an opening period before the goal, but in that one, the opening period was very end to end, and then when the Rovers scored, they started to really look controlled. I thought it was one of the best spells they'd had of the season, and that game wasn't quite hitting those heights with this one. But I thought generally that first half, Queens had a couple of chances, but nothing too, kind of substantial. And then the goal kind of came out of nowhere. The goal in itself is absolutely is brilliant. There's two really, really good contributions from the two players there. But before we really get into the goal itself, Les, would you agree with that kind of assessment? Did you think there was a fair amount of control from the Rovers in that first half?
There definitely was, I think. And I think the other thing that's worth noting is we very nearly had a second. Now, you'll have to excuse my memory went a bit hazy. Aidan Connolly had a fantastic free kick that brought out a super save from Callum Ferry. And then that was a nice thing in the first half, was any time we got a free kick, there was this wee conference going on at the edge of the box. Aidan Connolly was in there, Josh Mullen was in there, Kyle Turner getting involved, Louis Vaughan. Everybody was wanting a goal. And I think we were unfortunate maybe not to have had a second. Jack Hamilton was through as well and just got the ball caught on his feet. And Callum Ferry made a super save from the Connolly free kick. So, we could and maybe should have been at least a goal ahead. And then, again, the goal minded me a bit of the Dunfermline one from a couple of weeks back, and in a slightly different way, the Airdrie goal as well, in that the opposition had one real chance and they took it. And we found ourselves conceding with effectively their first real chance of the game.
What really struck me about that first half, though, Leslie, was that it all seemed very, very predictable not in a sense of like your build-up play. You could tell where Rovers were going to pass. I mean, we've generally got the same sort of style of build-up play across the piece. But I said to the people behind me that right after there was a heavy challenge on Dylan Easton, the guy doesn't get booked. I was like, we're going to get a silly booking straight away. The first card will be for a yellow card for Rovers, and I guarantee it's a stupid booking. And then Easton gets a booking for apparently talking off to the referee, which is, again, you don't know what's been said, so it's impossible to judge the scale of that. But it just felt a bit like out of place. And then I said as well, we're on top in this game, so they're going to get a goal like straight away from their first chance. You could tell, and it was just that was the way it panned out. And again, it was a really, really well worked goal. And like I said to you beforehand, before we started, I just feel like it's one that wouldn't have happened if Ross Millen had been on the pitch. And that's not a slight against Josh Millen. I think Josh Millen's like fine. I think it's just the experience of just having that midfielder in defence, playing as a sort of fullback there, where it's a perfect pass really to get the slip the boy Bruce in, and it's a well taken goal on his weaker foot. You can't take it away from it at all. But yeah, it's just horses for courses, unfortunately, and just the lay of the land of where we were.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think it's the kind of goal that you lose when someone is out of position, and it's not about it's Josh Mullen or it's Scott Brown who's in the defence there. It's the fact that you've got guys who are having to think more than they should have to about positioning and all that kind of stuff. And even then, it feels like we're taken away from the quality of the pass, because it is excellent. It's really, really good. I think it's Tommy Robson who plays the pass, and it's a very good run as well. And it's where it's almost just at the point where Josh Mullen kind of shifts his weight to go out wide, to go and kind of get tighter to his man, that he comes across him. And then, as you say, it's a very, very good finish as well. It's one of those where everybody knows exactly what he's going to do. He's always going to try and wrap his foot around that and put it across. But there's a reason he's always going to do that. It's a very effective shot at goal, and it comes off for him. And I think that it was at that stage, I think, you could maybe classify that as a kind of smash and grab up to that point, because as you say, Leslie, there was a point Hamilton went through kind of 1-on-1 and couldn't quite get the ball out from under his feet. Easton had a shot from quite a tight angle that Ferry tipped round the post. There was Connolly's free kick. There was Vaughan's free kick as well, which was very well placed, albeit probably too far out to ever really trouble the goalkeeper. The Rovers were having chances without being excellent, and then it just feels like the way it's been recently, that there's just this underlying fragility. And I suppose in this one it's quite understandable, and a lot of defenders missing, and as you say, Robbie, it's exactly the kind of goal you're gonna lose. It's a little bit like the one that we conceded up at Inverness when Josh Mullen was at right back. And again, it's not a criticism of him, but it's the communication between him and the centre half, and he's not quite where he needs to be as the cross comes over. It's a similar one. And it's exactly the kind of thing that if you've only got one right back in your entire squad and he's not available, these are the kind of chances you're going to cough up, and these are the kind of goals that you're going to concede. But at that point, I think there was only 3 or 4 minutes to half time with that one. Were you, Carol, kind of concerned at that point? Were you worried about the Rovers' ability to kind of bounce back from that?
No, based on the rest of the season, is that we've fought always to the last minute. So there's always that little bit of belief that we'll come out after half time, even if we don't score early, we'll try in the last 10 minutes. And it was 1-1 at that point. So it's like, we'll do this. We'll be okay. We just need to maybe step it up a gear, close it down at the back. But it's difficult, like you say, when we've got only one right player and he's not there. Everything just drifts out of position, and trying to pull people back is really difficult. So yeah, I was quite optimistic at halftime, but that's based on the rest of the season. On the performance of the day, I was still positive, definitely.
The Rovers came out after half time, and there was a big chance. Jack Hamilton again, a kind of glancing header, and it's another brilliant save from Callum Ferry. I said this yesterday, but based on just the evidence of the games between us, Queen's Park's best player is almost certainly their goalkeeper, and their second best player could quite easily be their other goalkeeper.
Yeah.
It seems mad that they've conceded 7 goals against us this season? 6 goals against us this season?
Well, it was interesting because the Queen's Park fans were getting asked before, like, how come McKenna's not playing? He's linked with Manchester United. And one of them pipes up and says, well, Callum Ferry's been player of the month for the last 3 months. Like, he's the reason that we're like still within touching distance here. And that's quite a statement to make when you've got the league's top goal scorer in your squad. You've got a guy like Dom Thomas who can do damage against teams at this level, and even some really decent midfield players and defenders as well. I mean, the lad Thompson's done really well. You've got even Jack Turner's put in a few good performances against us. So to have Callum Ferry coming out as your best player during that period speaks probably quite voluminous about it. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think he kind of showed that yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think that the save from Hamilton right at the start of the second half, I think, might be the pick of the bunch, because it's a very tricky one. He gets right down to it and does well to kind of push it away. And at that point, you kind of think, well, as you're saying, Carol, albeit right, Queen's Park have equalised, but it kind of came against the run of play. We've started the second half as we mean to go on, but then it does all kind of go a bit wrong. So first of all, the Rovers kind of cough up possession in the middle of the park, and it runs through for a chance for Rory Payton that he puts straight at Andy McNeil. And then kind of very quickly after that, it kind of do it again. Very uncharacteristic, really. It's slack passing in the middle, which you don't see an awful lot from the Rovers. Tend to, if you want to offer any kind of criticism, they overplay sometimes. But it's just a loose pass. Leads to the corner kick. And then Sean Welsh, he does very well. He's running off Sean Byrne. It's it's not a particularly kind of tricky run, but he gets away from his man, which is the main thing, and it's a very good header. Robbie, give me your thoughts just on that goal, please.
Yeah, it was. I feel like it was a cheap way to lose a corner in the build-up, just with how it happened. But then you just had this sinking feeling when they got the corner. You were just like, it was kind of like a 15-minute period of madness almost, in the sense of like those two moments, big moments came for them, and they took them, and that was it. They were away up the road at that point. It was going to
Was
just
that the same period that the ref was having a bit of a problem with what colour red and blue were and was giving out free kicks to the wrong players, or was that a different 15-minute period?
It could be any. I wasn't. I know that the referee didn't have the easiest of games yesterday and had a few decisions that were sort of baffling. But I'm sure if you ask Queen Park fans about that, they'll say the same. I know that a lot of their fans were quite critical, saying that our players went down too easily, and in particular Dylan Easton. But you're always going to get different perspectives on referees, whichever game you look at, and whatever set of fans you ask. But yeah, just during that period, again, Carol, you mentioned before the atmosphere was flat, and you could just tell at that moment everyone just sort of was creeping into that like unnervy feeling. There wasn't really much going on in the south stand. There wasn't much on the pitch to get people up. It's kind of a two-way street, isn't it? You've got to have the players on the pitch need to make a performance that gets the fans on their feet, but then at the same time, the fans in the stand can also help the players by geeing them up and making sure that they're there. Just never felt like anyone was really at the races yesterday. It was very much as soon as that second goal went in, you just thought, oh, we're going to be in for the clock's going to start ticking twice as fast, as I said to the people behind me. Queen's Park were going to start time wasting as they do, and I'll give them credit. I will say that since the last time that we played, they look a lot more streetwise. Queen's Park. They've stopped doing things like the mistakes that they were making in the last couple of games, that were giving up possession and letting us come right back at them. Instead, now you've got guys going down, showing cramp. You've got Callum Ferry going down, getting knocked over. And that all feeds into the atmosphere. Players get frustrated, fans get frustrated. We tend to rush things a bit more. We're looking for sort of more tricky passes, or we're taking our time because we've made a tricky pad, made a mistake. That sort of thing's just going to feed into a game like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the other thing to say on the goal for me is, again, it's not quite as stark as the first one, but again, it's the kind of goal you lose when you're missing, when you don't have your Ewan Murray, you don't have Keith Watson. Very much no longer available, like Dan O'Reilly as well.
Yeah, 100%.
You're missing these big dominant centre halves, who, none of them are going to be picking up Sean Welsh, but they're going to be in there just headering away whatever comes in. You're picking up your big men and you're just clearing, and it's, it comes in. I think it's coming in into the 6-yard box. You'd be hoping you've got a meathead, to borrow a phrase, in there to kind of head that away, and that, again, just something that we didn't have. It's you're going to be susceptible to some of these things when you don't have all of your first picks available.
Even have the experience of Kevin Dabrowski in there, and I know that people give Kev a lot of stick for not coming for crosses, but even during the Dunfermline game, he was out punching crosses. He's not always going to get them. There's sometimes where it comes off and he's left punching the air and the ball goes past him and you're a bit like, oh, but it's one of those ones where you can look back at it. Again, there's you can sort of look at it, and Sean Byrne's going to be the player that'll probably get the big question marks, but that's up to, it's been touched on that we're not Real Madrid, we're not Man City, and even Man City lose games of football, so mistakes happen at every single level of football. It's about how you handle them and how you react to them and how you move forward with them, and that's going to be
even
the main
Falkirk
thing.
lose games of football.
Yeah, apparently not. They just seem to be continuing on with their draw last night. But
apparently, if you just wander out the box and throw yourself to the floor, that's particularly helpful. But
Yeah.
let's not get into that. you're right though. Sean Byrne is the one who gets the kind of, I think, the most immediate sort of criticism for that, because it's his runner. He's the one that he loses. But Ian Murray said in his post match, he says that there's basically 4 separate points of fault at that where you can prevent that. It starts from the loose pass, then you've got the opportunity to then deal with the initial one, you've got possibly the opportunity to put it for a throw in, and then you lose it. And it's always going to be the way. There's very few perfect goals that are scored in football. There's always somebody that you could think could have done something slightly different. But that was, still relatively early on, 56th minute, I think, with that one. It's a lot of football to play, and a lot of good players on the park. But Leslie, do you agree with Robbie's assessment that it had a bit of a kind of an inevitable feel to it?
I think it did. I mean, the only thing I would add to what you're just saying is you're going to lose goals like that when you've got so many changes in the defence. So, we had a different goalkeeper in, we had 2 different centre-backs, a different full-back. And again, that wasn't any individual's fault, but that's the kind of goal, like you say, that you lose when you've got so many people who aren't used to working together. And kind of going on from that, I think what we really missed yesterday was having, I guess, somebody who can come off the bench and bring something really different. So previous weeks, we've had Aidan Connolly on the bench coming off and, changing the game, bringing his energy and his anger and his aggression on. Sometimes if you go back a wee bit further, we've had the depth to have Dylan Easton or Jack Hamilton on the bench to bring them off and bring you on something different. And because of the players that were unavailable for various reasons, and because of the need to have people like Josh Mullen filling in elsewhere, we didn't have that to the same extent yesterday. And I don't mean any disrespect to Jamie Gullen or Callum Smith when I say that, but we didn't have anybody that could come on and really kind of bring us something different. And I think there was a couple of moments after the goal where you kind of thought, right, we're going for it now, but there wasn't that thing where you're bringing a player on and then bang, it suddenly changes and you can really feel the momentum. You never really felt the momentum kind of shifting in our favour in any sort of coordinated way.
I think specifically as well in terms of, as you say, players who can make a difference and change things up. Ian Murray had said that the 2 that had kind of picked up the little sort of niggles in training this week were Ross Matthews and Keith Watson. You don't know how much of the preparation has been done with either of those 2 in line for whether they're starting or whether they're coming off the bench. There's a real... Keith Watson quite simply is a centre-half, so he gives you an option of actually playing 2 natural centre-halves if you really want to. I suspect it's probably too soon for him to have started, but again, would have been an option to bring off the bench at some point, should you need to, which you've never had that option. Ross Matthews, I think, is very interesting, though, because he probably is now fit enough to start a game, given what we've seen, or you would have hoped so, had he not picked up this minor issue. Could have easily been lined up to start a centre-half, or to be somewhere in that midfield to add a little bit more steel. Because I think what we saw from Kyle Turner, and I was very, very impressed with him in the first half, and as I say that, I wonder if I'm checking my own thought process. I'm thinking, well, we were winning for most of the first half, and I wonder if that coloured that slightly, because I think what we got from Kyle Turner was very, very good when we had the ball. But this is not me writing off Kyle Turner or anything silly like that, even remotely. But in that one body of evidence, playing where he was probably playing closer to a Lewis Vaughan type number 10 than he was a Sam Stanton. And I think we're increasingly realising that it's only Sam Stanton who does that. Mm-hmm. But I think, again, that's where not having Ross Matthews, you don't really have the option to say, I don't think it's really in Ian Murray's nature anyway, but to say, actually, you know what, let's fortify the midfield a little bit. Let's give ourselves a slightly strong... You've only really got Sean Byrne in there, and he's been there from the start. So that is always going to... And now, sorry, to kind of go back to the game, there were still chances. This was not... Airdrie last week basically created very, very little. Did not force Josh Ray into any real kind of save of note. This was a very different kettle of fish. There were certainly chances, but Robbie, despite that, I mean, I agree with your overall point. It did feel quite flat, but is there anything? Sorry, let me reframe this whole question. Right, let's take that whole later period. Right, so basically from the goal through to the end of the game, and just give me your thoughts on what Ian Murray did to try and win that game, and how you felt about it, and what you, with the benefit of hindsight, might have liked to have seen him do differently. And I think we'll all kind of chip in on this. So this is a big kind of point to cover.
So I think that for the focal points of our attacks on goal, the player that had the most chances over the piece was Jack Hamilton. And on another day, I think we're sitting here talking about how Jack Hamilton got a hat trick quite easily.
Yep.
Just with some of the headed efforts. Callum Ferry made a couple of really, really good saves, and fair play, because it was really the deciding factor between the teams. But as the game went on, we really did classic sort of, you've got to embrace the Murray ball with this, and it was very much a Murray ball situation of last year rather than this year, where we sacrificed players at the back. So firstly, Dylan Corr goes off, and then you bring on Jamie Gullen, so that's an extra forward, and then Josh Mullen, who'd been playing right back, comes off, and Callum Smith comes on for a bit of pace. But as the game went on, I don't know. It was really strange because we had all these attacking options, but we'd sacrificed so much at the back that you did sort of question about like how we were going to get forward into those positions to utilise those players in a way. So it's kind of like we took away with one hand for the other. But yeah, it was. I mean, there were chances in the box. The ball was bobbling about at points, and it wasn't really till the final 5 minutes or so when you felt like, oh, there might potentially be a way to snatch this here. And again, it's just the way that it is. But you've got to try and embrace that, and you've got to try and accept the style and realise that Ian Murray, we've given him so much praise for being bolder in games like that Fife derby, where we won 3-0 at East End Park with such a limited squad, and then we come away getting into the next round. You can't then come back and then say on the other side, like, I shouldn't be doing that really. But I can see why people do get frustrated by it. But yeah, for me, I don't know if I would have been as bold as him in terms of making the changes, but there's a reason that he makes decisions that I don't, because I'm some jobber online that just can talk about it, and I don't really know too much about football compared to him. So yeah, it's a difficult one because I'm sure the players have got the buy-in as well, and I've got complete faith in the squad and the players that we've got to be able to do a turn for us. But yeah, it did feel that was very towards the more extreme end of Murray ball yesterday, just sort of getting all the attackers on, try and get the ball in the box, have a bit of chaos, and then it might work. Again, it wasn't until really that sort of final dying embers of the game when we got that free kick and Jamie Gulling crashes it off the bar. So it'll be interesting to hear what everyone else sort of thinks about the philosophy overall.
It was an interesting one for me because I felt like Ian Murray, he waited longer than he normally does, or than we've seen from him in the past. Especially at home, he's made some of these changes relatively early on and been quite bold with it. And it felt like he managed to hold off for a little while longer. It's 76 minutes he makes that first change, but he went sort of straight to the nuclear option when he did make it. So
Yeah.
just like, right, that centre half on, centre half off, centre forward on, like, let's go. And then 5 minutes after that, just goes full, foot to the floor. And the back two, I think, is new. I don't know that we've seen that yet. Really.
I think we saw it last season, in particular the game against Cali Thistle at home, the first one where we lost the penalty through Ross Milne, and then they ended up, I think they beat us 2-0 maybe. But I remember definitely in that game it was like very much chuck on all the forwards, and then they get a goal right at the end because they've counter-attacked and we'd lost all our shape. I don't feel like it's a new thing. I feel like we're all sort of compass mentis about it at the same time, but it's worked this season, so you've got to be like, yeah, well, it's kind of worked this season, so You can't really go through all those results that we've had before, all those late equalizer stroke winners, and then say, I don't really like this anymore. You kind of, it is one of those ones where you've got to have a bit of understanding about it. It doesn't help that we had the sort of the injury issues or suspension issues that we've had to seek at the moment. But at the same time, yeah.
Carol, give me your thoughts, please, on specifically yesterday, and then, to Robbie's point, the kind of wider, what we'll call it, Murray Ball philosophy.
I think I put in the WhatsApp group, have we gone two at the back? Because watching on Raith TV and listening, going, we've gone two at the back. And I'm going to be open. I'm like, go for it. We've got nothing to lose. We're 2-1 down. We go 3-1 down. The only people that are going to be really peed off with that are the grumpy fans that would have been peed off with 2-1. So what have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? I think when Easton got the yellow card early, he definitely dropped 20%. He was cautious. He was worried about a second yellow because we can't afford to have someone else sent off. I thought Turner and Vaughan were doing great together, but they had no one really to feed them. They went up together. The first half, I think they were beautiful together. It looked great. I was like, this is going to really work. But there was no one there to feed them. And I think Turner maybe was meant to feed Vaughan, but they were both going together. And yeah, when it went really flat in the second half, it is that vicious circle of you need the players to get the fans up, for the fans to get the players up. And at one point, I think the Queen's fans were making more sound than the 2,000 odd Rovers fans. And it was like, everything just seemed a little off yesterday.
I would agree with
that. Nobody was quite 100%.
I think it felt like the memory of all those last minute winners had somehow faded. Because
it was a bit of a reality check. It was a bit of a reality check of this is what it's going to be for the season. It's not going to be plain sailing all the way. It's not going to be joyful. And no reason why it can't be, but occasionally there's going to be games where you're going to come out and go, well, that was a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's a really, really competitive division. And we've seen that enough times. And, Dundee United went to Hampden and could only get a point when, Queen's Park were still, or they were worse than they appear to be now. It's always going to be that way. You're always going to have these games that don't go for you. And again, I mean, Robbie, to your point about Jack Hamilton, I think you're absolutely right. There is, things don't have to go drastically differently for him to have a hat-trick. He could still probably afford to miss two of the chances that didn't go in and still get a hat-trick from that game yesterday.
I was just going to add in there, Duncan. Yes. It's like I said in the WhatsApp group, it was almost like after the last two home games in that Airdrie game, that everyone had sort of says, Raith are going to bottle it, and then it was like everyone just was like, yeah, we're going to bottle it, we're bought into this idea. It's completely like, you look at the table, we're still joint with United. Admittedly, we've dropped form recently. We've played one game more. Our goals against us are far higher. They've conceded 10. We've got 28. Yet Partick Thistle have still conceded more goals than us. And we've scored 38, which is 5 less than their 43. But it's like everyone's just accepted this as a thing. And I'm in my head, I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, people are absolutely itching for the wheels to fall off Raith Rovers, and that's a small minority of our fan base are in that way because they want to be proved right. You've already got people that are going for the board don't want us promoted because we can't afford it, which is just, let's be honest, that's just complete lunacy. You'd be as well talking about chemtrails up in the sky. And then you've got fans of other clubs jumping in, and they're desperate for us to fail. And that was one thing. I was in the hospitality yesterday, and that was one thing that was made very, very clear. Fans of other clubs will be absolutely desperate to see us. We've put a target on our back, and they will jump on that. They will target us. But as a club, we've got to stick together if we're going to run with that. And you've got to take the bad with the good. That's the other thing as well. You can't be going out and you can't lap it up with all these posters and statements and everything else. And I get that it's probably a bit of extra pressure on the players, but like was said, we've got complete belief that these players are good enough. So that's the other thing. Dylan Easton's getting linked with the top flight. Lewis Vaughan goes into yesterday joint top scorer in the goal. Aidan Connolly, we all know what Aidan Connolly can do in terms of his set pieces, in terms of his goals coming in from the wing. Josh Mullen delivers so much in terms of assists. Jack Hamilton's getting goals as well. You go throughout that team, you add in Kyle Turner as well, and yet people are just completely writing them off. We get Sam Stanton back in a few weeks' time as well, who's Christina Beattie, bow to her and say best player in the league. It's just bizarre to me. And I get that there's the defensive side, but we're in the perfect time to sort that out because it's January. It means we get a transfer window. We can go out, we can look at loan players. So I just feel like United have had a bad spell. We're having a bad spell by all accounts. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to say the last few results have been perfect for our form and that everything's. And the performance, of course, they could be better. But at the same time, let's not sack our season. We're second in the league, folk. Come on. Let's, again.
Can I add something to that as well? I'm going to add something to that too. And I think it's worth remembering. It's really fucking hard to get out the Championship if you've not just come down from the Premier League. And I think fans of our team, and also weirdos of other teams who should be looking over their shoulder at the relegation playoffs and are coming in and scoffing at us. Look, last season, Ayr and Queen's Park were up there. The season before, it was Arbroath. The season before that, we were up there. It's really, really hard. Because I sound like Billy Brown from East Fife here. It's what you've got. It's the players you've got. But there's a point to that. You've got a small squad. You've got less of a budget. You have to go back to probably Livingston, maybe St Mirren, the first time they went up, to find somebody who's come up and gone all the way up. It's very, very hard. And this is what we've got. These are the players we've got. But that it happens. It happens.
But just think back to last season when we're sitting there in 7th place and we get to that final 5 games of the season, nothing to play for. I'd rather be sitting in, let's put it this way, I'd rather be sitting in 2nd place, relatively comfortably as well in 2nd place, in this position that we're at, where we're quote unquote bottling it, compared to a team like Greenock Morton or Cali Thistle, where you've got their fans jumping in, the Rovers have bottled it after Christmas like they always do. Nah, sack that. Everyone said before, clocks go back, Rovers go. Not happened this season. Not happened this season. So I'm going full Kevin Keegan mode right now. So Duncan might need to wrestle me away and tell me.
I'll tell you what. I will jump in, and I'm gonna present a bit of a case for the prosecution then, in the interests of balance, right? Because I do think there's valid criticism there. I don't think that there's we've all been very effusive in our praise up to this point in the season, and for me personally, I think what needs to happen, and I'm very much just pointing at a problem and hoping someone else solves it here. I'm not offering any kind of solutions, but I think there's almost a lack of, I don't know if a lack of arrogance is the right way to put it, but that's how I'm going to start, and I'll try and explain what I mean. The games that we've had all this frustration with recently, right? So if you look at our last 6 games, we went to Tannadice and we won 1-0.
Brilliant.
Very much, absolutely brilliant. There's no taking away anything from that at all. It was incredible. And it was very much a case of everybody expected Dundee United to win that, naturally, right? The other game in our last 6 that we've won was away at East End Park. In a derby, it's very much a case of everybody's going toe-to-toe. They came out, they were very much looking to bring the game to us as much as we were to them, and we came out on top in that one as well. You look at the other 4 games in that period, 2 draws and 2 losses. I'm almost more bothered by the draws than I am by the losses in that period, because you've got 4-4 with Ayr United, who played more than half of the game with 10 men. You get 2 each with Arbroath, who, effectively played nearly half of that game with 10 men, apart from their goal-scoring goalkeeper, who at this point is basically taken on mythical status, like, Airbud, the dog that plays basketball. But my issue with that, and it's to be honest, it's less applicable to yesterday, but it does still come in. Because those two games in particular, I felt like we went and, it's like the big break glass in case of emergency, the big Murray ball button, and we pressed it too soon. And it's, for me, for all but one of those games, I think we've been top of the league. You're top of the league. So I'd have that little bit of arrogance, puff your chest out a bit, and look at it and go, all right, so we are top-ish in the league. Queen's Park are bottom-ish in the league. So I don't think it's controversial for me to say, despite yesterday's result, over the evidence of the whole season, Raith Rovers better at football than Queen's Park.
Yeah.
But instead of just sticking to the football and letting a normal game play out, Raith Rovers versus 10-man Ayr United, Raith Rovers are better. Raith Rovers versus Arbroath with a goalie up front, we're better than them. If you play that game 100 times, we'll win 99 of them, surely. It's an old kind of cliche you hear managers say all the time. They talk about control the controllables. I think Alex Ferguson had a similar one where he says, I'm going to make up the numbers, but it's like 97% of football is pure luck. My job is to control the other 3%. Or maybe it's the other way around. I feel like Ian Murray at times is almost doing the opposite of that. It's like, actually, sod the controllables. Let's go chaos and we'll thrive in the middle. If nobody knows what's happening, we do because we've been here before. And that's where I think, for me, it's a case of maybe don't do that. Maybe actually go, you know what? We are better than they are. Over the piece, it's not always going to work. You're still going to lose games. It's a championship. This is not me saying, if you do this, you'll win every game. It's sometimes, if you've got a man advantage, if you have that confidence to say, actually, you know what? We worked on plan A all week. Nobody's ever started a game, not since the 20s, with two at the back, because that's not the best way to win football games. You start with a solid defence and a solid midfield and you're good attackers. And I just think this reversion to the kind of chaotic Murray ball, it's not a case of it's lucky when it works. When it works, and it absolutely does. But it's not it's not like a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
If it was, everybody would be doing it. I think it's maybe a weapon in the arsenal that needs to come out sometimes, not all the time. And I mean, it was a point that I'm now basically just rebutting something Blair said yesterday that I didn't reply to at the time. But sorry, Blair, I hope you're listening. He said, but we've not really conceded many goals when we've done this. And that is true. But the onus has never been on the other team to score goals.
Yeah, that's also very true.
And I think it's too
chasing it.
It's too easy to defend against when it works, which I realise is a silly thing to say. It wasn't easy to defend against for all the teams that we scored last-minute winners against. But you see, like yesterday, Queen's Park break, and they've only got Liam Dick and then a backtracking Scott Brown. And it's just, they don't even need to think about scoring a goal because they actually go, hang on, I can take the ball to the corner and I'm probably going to get 20 seconds before a second guy catches up. And I think that's where, I say, for me, it's like in a lot of these games, we've had a better hand than the opposition, and we've gone, actually, do you want to play coin toss? Don't worry about the cards.
We've shown our hand. I think we keep going with Murray ball, but a bit more incognito, a little bit more theatrics, a little bit more, okay, you think we're going to line up with a back four, but actually we're not. We're going to do something else. I think we're half the way through the season, so everyone's seen what we've done and everyone's expecting it now. It's not a surprise. Go back. Sorry, on you go.
I would say there's a common denominator across all those games up to since Tannadice, which is that, first game after Sam Stanton gets injured, and we all know how good Sam Stanton is, and that definitely subtracts from our squad. The second point is that Kevin Dabrowski gets brutalised at Tannadice and then is now injured, and then gets knocked out in training by Daniel O'Reilly. Cheers for that, Dan, before disappearing off the thistle.
Undercover agent.
Aye, exactly. Even though you did score 2 goals in a derby, we're not forgiving you for beating up Big Kev. But no, I think that there are definitely factors in there, though, where it's the hand that you're dealt, and you've just got to deal with it, as you say. And again, I can completely take the point that it might not be, as you say, Duncan, Murray ball's always the best solution to go to, and to maybe have that bit of patience. But that's the manager that we've got, and we all.
Yeah.
When he signs a 3-year deal, it's like you say, it's just one of these things that you've just got to accept and buy into, because it's just the way it is. And
In Murray we trust.
it's a bit like
again-
Ross Milne. It's a bit like Ross Milne. Like, you know that he's going to get up to antics. You know that there's going to be shenanigans, and he might get himself into a silly situation where he gets sent off, and just through verbals alone. And whether that's justified or not, I don't know, because I wasn't there. But then at the same time, you get all the other good bits of Ross Milne that you do like. And when you see them, you're like, that's Ross Milne, lovable rogue. So, yeah, it's just... That's basically where Rovers are at the moment. They've just got these sort of things where there's a lot of good, but also there are the negatives that do come to the fore time to time. And unfortunately, just over the last few games, they've just came to the fore a little more than normal. But there's still so much time to fix it.
Exactly. And this is, I am not by any means, making a turn against Ian Murray, even slightly.
I wouldn't say that.
I'm totally, fully on board. And he's, again, we've said it enough times, the amount of credit that he's earned, even just this season alone with the performances, he's got, please don't do this, weeks and weeks of losses to come where he would still be in credit. He's done so well up till this point, and we're not by any means, I don't think, well, actually, no, a couple of lunatics on the internet I'm sure are, but nobody here is by any means kind of turning against him. I think it's exactly this. Just, listen, this it makes for very poor podcasts if we don't kind of jump into devil's advocate mode sometimes.
Yeah, and I think as a podcast, I would say that as well. We probably need to get a bit better at that. And it's easy when you're winning every week or drawing with the last minute draws. But I feel like the last few we've definitely slipped into that territory. But there does also need to be a bit of rationale behind it. You're not just being critical for the sake of being critical. There is a lot to be positive about. I think Davey mentioned it in his post-match interview with Ian Murray. I think that the cup games are a really good time for us now to take a break and just go out. And I feel like we can do a number on Livy and we can get a result against them. If we go through against Livy and then we get a decent draw in the next round at the cup, everything suddenly starts looking rosy again. And you're saying, well, we're away and we can potentially kick on and we can look at more. Again, I know that we're going to be looking at more January signings, and people have sort of, it's almost like Ian Murray's been sort of ostracised by some of our fans for saying he got interviewed off the cuff by BBC Scotland and he says, I wouldn't mind a pacey winger, and then all of a sudden are like, why aren't you signing defenders, Ian? It's like, just calm down, give him his time. We can have both. Why not? We can have both. Like, people are criticising him, like, why did we sign Kyle Turner? We needed a defender. Because it's Kyle Turner. He's a bloody good player. It's just...
Yeah,
like we touched
Ian
on that
Murray,
in the pre-match.
More or less said that. It wasn't directly in relation to a question about Kyle Turner, but he basically was like, yeah, if I've got the chance to sign better players than the players I currently have, obviously I'm going to do that. It's like the kind of thing, if you've got, you're like, I could really do with a defender. It's like, well, this 30 goal a season striker has actually become available. Like, no, defenders only, please.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Kyle Turner's such a good player. Like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, of course you're going to take him. It's not like an NFL draft where you're like, oh, if I have this guy, I cannot possibly then have someone else. You've got the option. But again, you can only sign who's available.
Yeah.
If there's not another defender that becomes available who's better than what you've got, then you can't get blood from a stone. And, we've got defenders coming back. And again, yesterday's game in isolation is a really tough situation to be in. You don't have your first choice player really in 4 of your back 5 slots, including your goalkeeper, and you've not got natural replacements for them. So, yeah. There's a lot of mitigation. Still created a lot of chances yesterday as well. On another day, kind of comes off for you.
And
I think, sorry,
even then,
just one final point. You're absolutely right about Livingston as well. I think it has come along at the right time, not just because it's a break from the league and all that kind of stuff. I also think it puts us back where we like to be, which is into that, not necessarily underdogs, but
less expectation.
Exactly. Livingston are not going to. Not that I'm suggesting Queen's Park did this yesterday, but Livingston aren't going to, sit in. They're not going to be content with feeling the game out. They're going to come out. They're going to want to play. They're under a lot of pressure. They're going to want to put on a bit of a performance, and that's where I think the Rovers kind of thrive. So, you're very much kind of looking forward to that as a bit of a change of pace. And obviously, we'll have an episode later in the week to go through the thing in more detail. But sorry, Robbie, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for everyone talking about the centre backs as well, or signing defenders. I mean, I know that it was the first goal was through Josh Mullen, and that's not a natural right back. But none of the other goals actually came from the fault of like centre backs. It wasn't like we had any clangers at the back. It was just unfortunate. Just the marking on the second goal gets away. Maybe you want someone else to be able to pick up responsibility, but then you've got Dylan Corr, first full senior season at a good level, like not Lowland League. No disrespect to the teams in the Lowland League, but there's obviously going to be a big jump up there for him. And Scott Brown as well, who's again the sort of hybrid between a sort of defender midfielder now. So again, maybe if you chuck in a Lee Ashcroft in there, the ball gets headed clear and we get a draw. But it was goals that came across the team yesterday, and I don't think anyone you can sort of pinpoint particularly is having any shockers. But likewise, I don't think anyone was absolutely stellar as well, in the same way. But I thought that, I mean, I like the look of both Corr and Turner. I thought they both had really, really good games, and I've seen very limited amounts of football in the whole for both of them. But I thought they were two that did look very, very good. Yet here we are. So
yeah, on that point, Robbie, I'm gonna steal that off your toes because it leads in nicely to the kind of big question. Because I suspected a fair bit of this episode would be a wee bit doom and gloom, and I didn't want to take the whole thing on that. So I'm going to ask each of you for a bright spot from yesterday, or a reason to feel optimistic, or something from yesterday that might cheer us up a bit, a positive. So, Robbie, we'll stay with you if you want to talk about, if you want to have Dylan Corr as one of yours, or indeed if you want to pick something else.
yeah, I'll go with Dylan and his performance. I like having two players on the pitch called Dylan as well, because you can scream, "Come on, Dylan," and it makes life a lot easier. Narrows the error for me getting a name wrong. But no, he looked really solid at the back. Came in, put in a good shift. I'd like to see a lot more of him moving forward, because I think that he is an asset that we've got. Very young, raw, but at the same time, he'll have gained a lot of experience from his time with us. And I think that can be said across all the younger lads. Didn't look out of place at all, and I think that, like I said before, we've almost kind of created a rod for our own back in the sense of not using as many bodies as we potentially could have, but now here we are, and I really hope the guy kicks on. He's had it must have been very, very frustrating for him to sort of say, right, this is going to be my first sort of full second tier season, a chance to play professionally at a good level. Obviously, you play at Celtic youths before, and you go into the Lowland League, and you're playing against, again, a decent standard of football, but this is going to be a big jump up, and it's taken a bit more seriously, I would say. Again, with no disrespect to that level of football. So Dylan Corr would be my bright spot. I would say off the pitch there was also a bright spot. Me and a few others took in hospitality yesterday, and it just, I've got to say, really, really good experience. I've never done hospitality before, but I would definitely do it again. If you are considering it, I would encourage you to sort of make inroads and sort of look towards it. Really just well hosted, well organised. Everyone was very, very friendly. And the food was good as well, which is always a bonus. Had a few drinks, catch up with people, see faces. So yeah, I would encourage anyone, if you've never done it before, it's well worth getting involved with. And Grum naturally grabbed myself and Ian Latto to get up on the mic as well. No sing-songs, but we did have a bit of a roast of John Greer, which is always a good laugh.
I was just going to say, I'm glad Graham Kilgour's bribes. He's at least getting value for money. It's always good to see. Right, Carol, you next, please. Give me a positive out of yesterday.
It might not be everyone's, but I definitely felt more positive at the end of Aaron Murray's post-match interview than at the start. I thought how just the way he conducted it, the way it come across, and that, yeah, I felt more positive with that. It was a good interview. I thought he answered a lot of the questions that as supporters we had. Yeah, I was positive with that. I definitely come out of that interview more positive than I went in.
Excellent. Yeah, me too. I agree. I watched it just before we came on, and yeah, that was very much my overriding feeling as well. It's a very just he's a good listen, Ian Murray. Even when it is, after a loss, he gives you a little bit of value and a little bit of. I think we've all seen managers at the Rovers and elsewhere who just, you can tell it's the last place they want to be, and they're just straight batting interviews until they can get the hell out of there. But it's interesting. You always kind of learn little bits and pieces. Leslie, give me your reasons to be cheerful, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things about the game yesterday that can all be true at the same time, and I said this online as well. I mean, before I kind of get to the positive, I think it's just worth reiterating that's 3 games at home against the bottom teams where we have led but haven't won. You can't in any way look at that and say that's good. Nonetheless, I do think that we played better yesterday than we did against Airdrie, and in turn, we played better than we did against Ayr and against Arbroath. As I say, I don't think you can look at the games across the piece and say this is fine. However, I think there was a lot of things that went well on the pitch, and we were moving well. There wasn't the huge hole that we had against Airdrie. Kyle Turner did a power of work. He linked up really nicely with Louis Vaughan. Jack Hamilton got a goal. Something I kind of keep thinking about Jack Hamilton, I'm reminded of the German centre forward Miroslav Klose, I think he's their record scorer in World Cups, may actually be the record scorer in World Cups.
Yeah,
something that's pointed out, all his goals have come from within the penalty spot. And, people are kind of slagging him off for just getting tap-ins. But you think, to get the tap-ins, you've got to be in the right place. And that's what I think about with Jack Hamilton as well. A lot of his goals, apart from the screamer in the Challenge Cup, have come, like 2 or 3 yards from the goal line. But it's because he's getting himself in those positions. And, okay, he had a couple of good headers. Maybe he could have had a wee bit more yesterday. He's maybe been a bit unlucky. But you hope that he's just going to kick on. And, he adds so much to us when he's on the pitch. He's still had a good return for a Rovers striker. Probably a better return than anybody we've had since goodness knows who. But, so I think we played better. And we played better with about 5-6 players missing who ordinarily would either be starting or you'd be banking on to bring on. So if that's kind of as depleted as we're going to get, and if this is a turning point, then I'll be quite happy. So I think the next couple of league games are going to be really important in kind of determining where we go. And, we've got Livingston up next, a chance to really test ourselves against the kind of side that we might have to face in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That well, granted they've still lost the game, but I agree with you completely. I did think they played better than they did at Airdrie. And your point about Jack Hamilton's the same. You can absolutely, and people have done it for as long as football's existed, you can criticise a striker for missing chances. But that is a lot more palatable than strikers who don't get chances. And we've all seen plenty of those, where you go through games and you think, this guy's, how many touches in the box has he had?
Yeah.
Whereas Jack Hamilton, he's there and he's getting those chances. Sometimes you come up against a goalkeeper who's on form. Sometimes you can't quite crane your neck and the ball ends up right at him anyway. Fine. The more chances you're getting, the goals will come. So yeah, it's a really, really good point. And similarly, towards the end of that game yesterday, like, they weren't brilliant. There's no use trying to argue that. But at the same time, I didn't think they were actively bad either, in the way that we've all seen teams try and chase a game and do it terribly. And then towards the end, there was a couple of little daft things where you give away these fouls and you let all the pressure away. But I thought it was quite a fitting kind of image of the game when right at the end, that throw-in that Aidan Connolly just kind of slipped out of his hands as he tried to take it too quickly. And I think that's almost like, yeah, it's unfortunate. He's not made a mistake. He hasn't done anything wrong. But just in that urgency, it's not gone to plan. And I thought that was quite a kind of metaphor for the overall sort of second half that fitted quite well. But yeah, a really good point. I hadn't really thought about it that way. But yeah, you're right. The performances have actually, although the results haven't, the performances probably have been getting a little bit better. And just to round us off, a couple of positives from me. So, yeah, Dylan Corr's performance I had down. Andy McNeil, again, I thought was very strong. Absolutely, once again, like I said last week, justifying the choice of him over Robbie Thompson. Concedes 2 goals. I don't think there's much you can really do about either of them. You probably make an argument for the corner that some goalkeepers might come and get it, but a lot wouldn't have done. And yeah, that's not a straight 1-for-1. I thought Kyle Turner was very good as well. Carol, you said it a little while ago. The Kyle Turner and Lewis Vaughan were kind of at times linking up very well, and at times it wasn't quite. They were kind of occupying the same space. That'll come, with understanding. They've literally only played together for as long as we saw them yesterday. So that's absolutely ground for optimism. And then the final one, the main one, is from Ian Murray's interview. The injury update, he was pretty open about. So Keith Watson, Ewan Murray, and Ross Matthews and Kevin Dabrowski all seem like they're kind of imminent and in contention for next weekend, which is excellent. He also said Ross, and then Sam Stanton, he says 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks
or so,
max,
which is really good.
Better than I think many of us were expecting, particularly when Kyle Turner came in. And he also said, and this is a little kind of surprise to me, he said that Ross Millen's back next week. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not know whether that's just maybe a turn of phrase or something. He potentially means the week after for the league or whatever, but I don't know. But hopefully, if Ross Millen's back for Livingston again, then that absolutely grounds for optimism there. So, yes, hopefully that's a slightly more positive note for us to end on, having done a fair bit of mumping and moaning right in the middle there. Thank you once again for listening in and being with us for that debrief on that game. We will be back later in the week. I would heavily suspect Thursday evening we'll be back in your lug holes, but we will confirm that later on in the week. So once again, as I say, thank you for listening. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram, which is being very capably run by Carol. So you get good content on there. Blair's set up the shop. I'm not really doing anything. You just have to listen if you want to hear stuff from me. So like and subscribe, and as you come back later in the week where we will have even more Rovers chat for you. Thank you.